the technology changes. Oh, there you go, Alan. I think you succeeded.
And
Okay,
I know I
good.
can do basics. It's just that if I get into trouble
Great.
anywhere, I don't know how to unscramble it.
Right, but it changes. It's not like if you learned something
Right.
5 years ago, it should be at the same time more complicated and easier.
Yes, I
So
understand.
Okay.
if you're not using the full range of the entire computer that's on your phone, you should be able to just do the simple things. And that's,
Okay.
that's my motto, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, sorry for the little hiccup, but we've got it going.
Yeah, none
So,
of these things are little, Alan. The size of the files that you post is probably part of the issue.
could
Don't you
be.
think?
Sometimes, yes, because it takes a while, depending on your
Right.
connection, how long it takes to come through the internet to you. Yes. Well, among the many rules that are listed, and there are many rules in Teitzei, there are a few about clothing, including a woman must not put on a man's apparel, nor shall a man wear woman's clothing, for whoever does these things is abhorrent to your God Adonai. And that leads to a comical moment in the 1983 film Yentl, directed by and starring Barbara Streisand, loosely based on a 1962 Isaac Bashevis Singer short story, Yentl der Yeshiva Bocher, Yentl the Yeshiva Boy. It's about a girl from the shtetl whose father secretly taught her Talmud, secretly because girls weren't permitted to study. And after his death, she's so determined to learn more, she dresses as a young man in order to attend a yeshiva. And in the process opens up a can of worms exploring questions of identity, sexuality, gender, and falling in love, too. 600 years earlier, in Italy, an unnamed artist illuminated perhaps a less controversial instruction in the Parsha about the humane treatment of animals. This is from the Forli Siddur, among several manuscripts commissioned by Rabbi Daniel ben Samuel from a prominent northern Italian Jewish family. Considered one of the best preserved examples of illuminated Siddurs and Haggadot from the Middle Ages, the pages of the Forli Siddur are filled with elaborate illustrations, many of the pages framed by climbing vines and tree branches. And this one, taken from the passage we'll read in a few minutes, when you find a nest with a mother bird and fledglings or eggs, shall not take the mother together with the children, a passage continuing to inspire artists today. This is by Los Angeles artist and calligrapher Hillel Smith from his Parsha Posters series, using movie poster styles to illustrate each Torah portion. He shows us the mother bird soaring above, with her nest and eggs in a branch below. With his stylized calligraphy, Hillel Smith incorporates the Hebrew letters of the Parsha in the name of the Parsha in the image. Can you make them out?
Yep.
Jeez.
And in this case, the letters of Teitzei form the nest, cradling the mama bird's eggs. From the Ancient Illuminations collection of another contemporary American artist, Star Weems, the nest and eggs are more realistic in her watercolor. An art teacher and environmentalist, she puts blue robin eggs into the nest, the kind that would be familiar to her students in northern Alabama. Also, separate from the superimposed title, what appear to be Hebrew letters are interwoven with the twigs of the nest. Virginia-based artist Naomi Geller-Lipsky gives a traditional early American sampler look to this multimedia piece that uses the technique of paper quilling, rolling strips of paper into small coils and then shaping them into three-dimensional images placed into a traditional painting. Popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, especially among elegant young ladies, quilling, also known as paper filigree, was even mentioned by Jane Austen in Sense and Sensibility, when Eleanor Dashwood and Lucy Steele excused themselves from the usual evening card game with the Middletons on the ground that Lucy must continue her filigree work. While interested in arts and crafts from childhood, Naomi Lipsky studied at Johns Hopkins, earning a PhD in biochemistry, cellular, and molecular biology. One of the papers that I found when I was Googling her was Perturbation by Clofibrate of Mitochondrial Levels in Animal Cells, Implications for a Model of Mitochondrial Genesis. Interesting, because mitochondria have sort of been in the news lately. She studied art in her spare time and eventually left science for a second career, creating Judaic art using modern and traditional techniques and materials. From the Women of the Book project of original pieces by 54 Jewish women artists from around the world, one for each parsha, Teitzei is by American-born Ruth Kestenbaum Ben Dov, who made Aliyah to Israel as a teenager with her family, graduated from Bezalel Academy, and now lives and works in the Galilee. Although she presents the mother bird and egg-filled nest, the artist notes that the passage is included in the laws of wartime, something that affected her personally with 3 children in the IDF at the time of this painting 10 years ago. Notice on the right side, the hand holding a rifle and the standard issue Chumash carried by Israeli soldiers. I think Aviva still has hers. She writes, "I am the mother bird who needs to fly away from the nest before the eggs are taken. Perhaps I am also the female prisoner of war who shaves her head and weeps at times I feel imprisoned by the reality of unending conflict, its demand for patriotism and sacrifice, and by my own failure to search for a peaceful alternative." That's from Ruth Kestenbaum Ben Dov. Coming back to wearables, and another detail that figured into the Yentl story, American artist, calligrapher, liturgist, and cantorio soloist Joanne Fink chose to wear tassels or fringes, or as she puts it in her translation, twisted threads as her Teitzei image. She works in a variety of media, photography, digital, and calligraphy in this one, and lives and works up the main line outside of Philadelphia. And from another contemporary artist that we regularly feature, English-born Israeli painter and sculptor Darius Gilmont frames the Teitzei painting with the fringes on all 4 corners. And as he usually does, he packs a lot from the parsha into a deceptively simple image, from the bird's nest full of fledglings being protected, to capturing a war bride and bringing her home, to leaving grain and fruits at the edges of the harvest for the stranger and the widow and the orphan, to building a parapet on the roof of your new home in the promised land to keep people from falling over, and all the while, that curious black cat surveying the scene. Darius Gilmont wraps up the art for this, our 5th time, with Teitzei.
Yes. Thank you.
Now I know where I got the name Joanne, because I saw the Joanne peaked one point. Yeah.
Oh, Reba has joined. Welcome, Reba. Shabbat Shalom. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to defer my Misha Berach names until everybody else goes, because I got to think about it. So, Misha Berach, unmute and say something.
Well, I will add to our list our friend Clay, who is recovering from a terrible auto accident that was, 6 months ago, I think, 7 months ago. And he's still dealing with the aftermath of that. And it's just a reminder that anything can happen in a moment and change your life. And he's still undergoing treatment for multiple fractures and infections. And it's a tough climb. So Clay is in our thoughts.
Looking around on the screen, Misha Berach to Sarah, to Marilyn, Heather, Yehuda. I think you're doing good.
Thank you.
Never hurts. Who else needs a Misha Berach on our screen?
I'll give one.
All right.
For my brother Sid, who's been having some health challenges. He's undergone some surgeries and is now hopefully recovering from all of those. But he's been really challenged in the last couple months.
Inside of our community, for Mike, Jan, Goldie, Does Nella still need a Misha Berach? She looked perfectly good and healthy and more robust than me yesterday, but maybe because of the Misha Berach, so we'll add her there. Are Ohana in Kentucky, Michael, Ted, and Carol. And who else?
Several of my neighbors, just say that, and Carolyn, and my kids.
Okay.
Grandkids.
Yeah,
Michael.
okay. I'd like to say one for my friend Leah Basaya, and her daughter Lisa Baslea, who had a heart attack. She's okay, but she had to have stents put in. And my daughter Rivka Basera for her knee injury.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm happy that nobody explicitly comes to mind, yet I always feel there's always somebody somewhere who needs a mission. Heal tikkun olam,
Yeah,
So just
that wraps it up.
a broad one, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we enter into the high holiday season, so lots to chew on.
Marsha.
Avotenu, makor habracha, Lirotenu, may the source of strength, oh, bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Tenu, makor habracha, Tenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah, the renewal body, the renewal of spirits, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Mhm.
I think that what I see from other things that I join, we're supposed to all unmute and in a cacophony say this
Okay.
לעסוק בדברי תורה. So everybody unmute. ברוך אתה
Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam,
אשר
asher
קידשנו
kitshanu
במצוותיו
b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu
לעסוק
לעsok
דברי
b'divrei
תורה.
Torah.
Amen.
Ruth Ellen, you want to start us off?
Okie dokie. Should you go out to battle against your enemies, and Hashem your God give him in your hand, and you take captives from him, and you see among the captives a woman of comely features, and you desire her and take her for yourself as wife, you shall bring her into your house, and she shall shave her head and do her nails. And she shall take off her captive's cloak and stay in your house, and keen for her father and her mother a month of days. And afterward you shall come to bed with her, and you shall cohabit with her, and she shall become your wife. And it will be, if you like her not, you shall send her away on her own. But you shall certainly not sell her for silver, you shall not garner profit from her, inasmuch as you have abused her.
Uh-huh.
Should a man have two wives, the one beloved and the other hated, and the beloved one and the hated one bear him sons, and the firstborn son be of the hated ones, it shall be, on the day he grants estate to his sons of what he has, he shall not be able to make the beloved one's son the firstborn over the firstborn son of the hated one. For the firstborn, the son of the hated one, he shall recognize to give him double of all that belongs to him. For he is the first yield of manhood, he is the birthright's due.
Yeah, go ahead. We're gonna stop at 21, sorry.
Okay. Should a man have a wayward and rebellious son who does not heed his father's voice and his mother's voice, and they punish him, and he does not heed them, his father and his mother shall seize him and bring him out to the elders of his town and to the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious, and he doth not hearken to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. All the people of his town shall stone him to death, and you shall root out the evil from your midst, that all Israel may hear and be afraid.
Okay.
Right, doesn't get any easier to say, any 5 years or 2 years or 1 or 0.
Can I say something? I mean, I don't want to dispute God's word, but we had a situation in our family where one of our children did get addicted to hard drugs. He had run away to the parking lots of the Grateful Dead concerts and came back addicted to heroin. And the stats on these on heroin addiction are horrendous. I mean, there's very, very small percentage of people that actually make it after they've been strung out on that drug. And thankfully, our son is the exception so far. Hallelujah. And we never gave up. And people would say, you know, just because people like that cause trouble in your family. They do stuff because they're addicted that is not normal or appropriate. And people would say sometimes, well, why don't you just like, you know, like give them up, like turn them over, like throw them away. And I always thought, you know, even I'd go to Al-Anon and some things that were pretty out there were said. And I always thought that my friend and I should write a book, Al-Anon for Jewish mothers, because what they were preaching wasn't going to work with my neshama. I mean, some of it, but you know, who can throw your kid away? And I really believe the fact that we were able, I mean, he was raised right, but that doesn't necessarily save anybody. We stuck by him. We went through hell. We did whatever we had to do, and it wasn't easy. But we didn't lose our son. And when I come across this, it chokes me. I just had to say there's an alternative that's possible. So that's all.
I'd just like to make a short comment. I think we need to reconvene the Sanhedrin and rewrite all this.
Why?
Well, you know, I don't think anybody here believes that these mores and folkways are guidelines for our present existence. I'm not going to take a woman, use her for a year, and cast her out. I mean, as a feminist, you can't like that law. I can't believe you would stand behind it, you know? So, you know, I read this stuff and I got to frame it in the times that these laws were written. And we're in a total different you know, time in civilization has changed. And some of it makes a lot of sense, and some of it you just kind of go, that was then. I mean, now we're not going to do that, you know. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But, you know, I certainly wouldn't recommend any of my descendants to live by this law.
Well, okay, so you ended with saying this law, and I'm very glad you ended that, because this law is a term that's used that encompasses everything. When God says, and you follow this law, you know, your entire life, you carry this law, or you write this law and study your whole life, whatever it is. First of all, I want to make a couple of corrections. I will call on you in just a minute because I'm going to try to tie what Arnie said to what Marilyn said, but you guys have to follow me here. So number one, Arnie, these are the words of Moses. The books of Deuteronomy are the books of Moses, the words of Moses. It's Moses's repetitions, reiterations, whatever it is. It's a great orations of Moses. So in some way, we're already one level removed, so to speak, because Moses is speaking these words. That's number one. Number two, laws exist because things happened. Laws do not exist because somebody is sitting and dreaming of a way to make everything not happen in a bad way, make the world perfect. The only reason laws exist is because morality failed. So you're relying on morality. Your morality may be intact, but there is an issue, and laws exist where morality has lapsed. So I want to clarify that. Now, let me try to tie what Marilyn's is saying to what Arnie is saying. This is difficult for me, so try to bear with me. Our brain has receptors in it for things that we don't know why. Like, why do we have opiate receptors in the brain? Well, somebody goes and figures out what can join those and become an experience, right? So we put opiates and they join the opiate receptors in the brain and we have an experience. And what that experience is a shortcut, right? The parts of the brain that will relate to something from the outside bring us a shortcut to fill in the blank: joy, clarity, understanding, connectedness, anything that feels good. It's a shortcut to feeling good. Judaism, with all these laws, as complicated as they are, says
No, sure.
there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. And including not throwing away your child because they have caused harm to themselves and the world. So that's the thing I'm tying. There are no shortcuts. You can be happy if you feel like your moral self has remained intact, but surely you can't look around the world around you and say, true for everybody. So I just wanted to say that, and then Yehuda, I'm going to call on you, and I'm going to mute myself.
But also, opiate receptors in your body are to balance your body so you can get through life, because we need pain intervention. I mean, like on a normal day, we're not talking about me. We're just talking about on a normal day, the human body needs to be, modulated between extreme pain and extreme joy. I mean, like, you can't get through life without that. That's why it's there.
Well, I don't recommend that any modern Jew raises their kid that way, according to the dictates of, taking him to the gates and having him stoned because he got stoned or
I agree.
whatever. So that's my only point, that, we take this stuff with a grain of salt. We go, well, that was the old times and things have changed. But we also, say this is our law. This is how we're supposed to live if we believe in the Torah, right? So there's a little bit of contradiction. Maybe that's God's purpose, to stimulate our brains, to make us think, and make wise choices as we get older. I don't know.
Yehuda, and then Ruth Ellen.
I will build on what you just said, Arnie, that let's just imagine what you originally posed, that the Sanhedrin met again and got rid of all this. If we get rid of all of it, we don't talk about it anymore. So it's just what you said right now. Maybe it's more important that we have these things that we can bring up and have passionate conversation about. And that makes it the living Torah, that we're in the present and we're addressing it.
I love that, Yehuda. Thank you.
Ruth Ellen?
Number one, first I was going to say to Marilyn, like sometimes we look and it's so heinous and it's so broad. But in your particular situation, it was very general in there. It said when they tried with their son over and over again, and then they gave up. You did not give up. You see, now you were fortunate. So your son came around to a better place before it would even have gotten to that point. Number one, just in and it never says don't show compassion, So this is again, and this is a little bit to Arnie's point too. All the details. I mean, we go crazy because the Torah, we parse words like that. That's our great. Our greatest pastime is parsing words. And even, well, we'll ask the lawyers here because that's the thing, so much of, the modern legal system, they say to the degree that it derives from the Judeo, from the Bible, is because every situation deserves to be addressed and analyzed on its own merits. And there's never usually a simple binary, like Aviva likes to use that word. And again, to Arnie's point, now I'm just going to throw in that it's my 5th year. We always come back to this. And one of the things that comes up is in the Talmud and everything. What I think even Rabbi Daniel said it once, not Daniel, the one from Oregon. Why am I forgetting his name? So but the rabbis would say the fact of the matter is this would never be, the stoning would never happen because this is like an extreme hyperbolic example. It would never get to that point, once all the analysis was done. So there's always hope.
Alan?
I wanted to come back to something at the very beginning, the bringing the war bride home as long as she's comely. I mean, you leave all the ugly women on the field, but bring home the beauties. But we've never really established what marriage is. And in this, it's you sleep with her and then you're. If everything's fine, she's your wife. In previous relationships that have become marriages in the Torah, it's usually been some sort of transaction, some family connection, or some chosen person chosen to be the spouse. And I don't think there's ever been an establishment of what it takes to be a married couple. There's talk about divorce that comes up several times later in the Parsha. The process of dissolving a marriage is there, but we really don't know what the process is of creating a marriage. Is it just enough to bring her home, put her to bed, and then you're married?
There are some examples of that. He took a wife. That's what it
Well,
says.
he didn't have any choice. There was nobody else to pick. That was.
Is there anything in history that establishes the timeline for a ketubah being created?
There is, I don't know it, but there definitely is. The tradition came from somewhere. It did not become assumed. As most of the Jewish traditions, and actually the reason I stopped where I wanted to stop is because the very next parasha, I wanted to bring that aspect into, the very next few lines, I wanted to bring that aspect, but I'll wait on that.
What
Sarah,
Reba just wrote is really wise.
What did she write? Let's see. She wrote, I don't think anyone was stoned because the elders convinced the family that the person needed help, not punishment. Yes, that's from Reba.
I see this as a deterrent.
Well, can I just ask, so you're talking specifically about stoning a child?
Yes.
So because what's the crime actually? It's so vague that it leaves it so open-ended, it's almost disturbing. It says, if a householder has a wayward and defiant son who does not heed his father or mother or does not obey them even after they discipline him. Okay, what? Like, can we have a more specific example? Like, being sarcastic, being, like how, to what extent? That's the trouble. It doesn't actually tell us. So it leaves to parents a reflection on their own parenting. It does not.
Does though, Aviva, it does, because it gives you the example of somebody who will not be corrected. They won't listen, they won't observe, they won't humble themselves, they won't respect authority, they won't do the things that are necessary to have any they won't cooperate with a cohesive society, even if the society is just in their home.
So I want to introduce a concept here, and thanks to the book I'm reading for our book club, the book Here All Along, and that's the concept of in the image, B'Tselem. we know we love the term in the image of God, everybody in the image of God. But I think what we do is we make God in the image of us. So who are parents to say that a child is disobeying? What are they disobeying? Who are they disobeying? There's a real problem there because that's left to interpretation. And because of that, I agree, the stoning can't happen because the first thing that has to happen is parents have to look at themselves and say, am I understanding this correctly? Let me take a moment here. And that taking a moment is an entire world of possibility. So that's where I like to think about these very problematic things is, are we taking the easy way of saying it, let's create God in our image so we can try to understand. And then, if we do that, that could be dangerous. It can be dangerous for society.
And let's remember, Bob Dylan wrote a whole song about it.
Which one are you referring to, Arnie?
They'll stone you when you're trying. Yeah.
Right.
Rainy Day Women 12 and 35.
I didn't have enough coffee today.
Okay, so in this order, Matan, Sarah, and then Ruth Ellen.
Okay, I was just going to say, I suspect that the oral tradition spells out what the crime is, but I'm not familiar with the oral tradition, the Talmud and the Mishnah. As far as going back to marriage, I'm thinking about Leah and Yaakov or Israel. They just went in the tent, and when they came out, they were married.
It took a wife.
Yep.
Coincidentally, also happening with the first example of love between humans. Between, romantic love, first mention of romantic love. Okay, Sarah.
I was just going to say that the ketubah is like a mirror. It represents the marriage. The marriage that takes place in the ketubah represents the marriage between Hashem and Israel. And the ketubah has to be written on one piece of paper, just like each Torah scroll has to be on one. And if there's a mistake in there, it has to be rewritten all over again. And I think there are but there's a difference because in the ketubah, you can have a divorce, but in the marriage between Hashem and Israel, there is no such thing. And that's because it's written before, this idea that the Torah was written, at the time of creation. There's a lot more to it.
Interesting.
I'm trying to remember more about it, but I know that the ketubah represents that one piece of paper represents unity. And so when it's broken, that's the divorce. Represents unity, just like God being married to Israel. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Ruth Ellen, your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just come back in general. Every time we come to this, I think for all of us, it is very hard to wrap our head around the concept that not everything is forgivable. I talk about this all the time, like all those other examples where the evil was so abhorrent and so impactful on the whole community that it had to be removed. Number one. And wait, my other thought. Wait, hold on. Oh, shucks. It just flew out of my head. I was sitting here.
When it comes back, write it down and then pipe in again.
I know. I usually. But one other thing I want to say, just because of reading this, and Arnie says I'm a feminist and it can't be like this. I just happen to finally be catching up on watching The Handmaid's Tale. Now season 1 was the only one based on the book, and everything has been extrapolated from that. I'm on the 4th and the 5th, the final 2 seasons, and this is ultimately becoming the primary theme is the way women are treated in this whole thing. And their whole deal is that they're going back, Gilead is bringing them back to the biblical way of living and the role of women, and yet there are women who are stronger, and the whole thing is being corrupted, and they're using that as a metaphor for what's going on. And then you have, J.D. Vance and this ilk, the coming saying that. So, human nature is human nature, and we're going to keep wrestling with all of these things, no matter what we decide to do.
So since we delved into that forbidden subject, I'm going to say that reading the last parasha, this one, and possibly the next one, are a good reminder in these days where old notions that have been hopefully put to the side, put to rest, put away, and hopefully buried, that we can again be aware of how relevant they are to us. And I will mention one, because this is the one that that keeps worrying me. But well, actually, I'll wait till later. But let's just say that things that we as humans, as Arnie would like to say, we've reached a different place. We understand these things. Why do we need them written down? I can't think of a more relevant time to read them, because these are reminders that the things that seem obvious and facile are neither obvious nor facile. And you need to look no farther to the time we're living in this country now, and in many other places around the world, including Israel, to say what a timely time to be reminded. And look at the structure. We're reading these parashot in this month leading up to the High Holy Days. It is very well planned. And, this chapter, this parasha is divided so beautifully. So right now we read the part on family relations. Next, we're going to read neighbors, nature, and clothing. How do you even categorize them into one thing, right? So it's very purposeful. It's very timely. It's very well planned out. None of us have reached a place in our life where we can say, oh, we got it. We're done. We don't need to think about these things anymore. So Ruth Ellen, go ahead. And then
I remembered, and you probably know, and I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to refer you to Rabbi Sax's Covenant Conversation, not the one for this year, called The Two Kinds of Hate. I don't know if you read that. He makes and he gives the example because it's in this parsha of the Amalekites. There's no forgiveness for them, and yet the Egyptians who enslaved us, why? And he makes this distinction, which is really, I've been thinking about posting this to my Facebook page, so it may be from my tradition, but the ideas are universal, and it plays into my notion that sometimes things are so evil and wrong and there's no reasoning, and that's the whole thing. Any hate that evolved from some rational reason, and he even gives the examples of why it was. He said, now rational is not the same as justified, but people have fear. He gives the example of, the pharaohs, and he gives history that I didn't know, because the Egyptians were invaded by another people and became stronger than them. So then later on, and they said, the Hebrews may overtake us. So there was a rationality to it justified. He said, when that happens, through discussion and through forgiveness and through evolution and communication, you can overcome that hate, and then you can move forward into love. But then the kind of hate that comes from irrational, unreasoning, for no reason, like the Amalekites picked on the Israelites just because they were weak, there's kind of like no coming back from that. It's a sad truth, but I think it's a very important distinction. Okay.
Okay, so and we're gonna revisit that at the very, very end. Okay, somebody read.
I'll read.
Okay.
And should there be against a man a death sentence offense, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, you shall not let his corpse stay the night on the tree, but you shall surely bury it on that day. For a hanged man is God's curse, and you shall not pollute your soil that the Lord your God is about to give you in estate. You shall not see your brother's ox or his sheep slipping away and ignore them. You shall surely return them to your brother. And if your brother is not close to you, and you do not know who he may be, and you shall gather it into your house, and it shall be with you until your brother inquires for it, and you return it to him. And thus shall you do for his donkey, and thus shall you do for his cloak, and thus shall you do for any lost thing of your brother's that may be lost by him, and that you find. You should not be able to ignore it. You shall not see your brother's donkey or his ox falling on the way and ignore them. You shall surely raise them up with him. There shall not be a man's gear on a woman, and a man shall not wear a woman's garment. For whoever does all these is an abhorrence of the Lord your God.
Okay, I was going to be more generous and go a little farther, but we can, that's fine. Stop right there, because there's so much. Okay. And why do we have explanations for some of these troubling laws and we don't have? There's very little actually commentary, for example, on that line 5, about what is loosely referred to as cross-dressing. So I do want to point out that I think it's 3 times in these lines. We might have stopped a little too soon, but the word cannot ignore or do not ignore is 3 times in a very close space in this parasha. And I think that's kind of a key to a lot of what we're reading. It's not that don't pretend it doesn't exist. Don't ignore means something really, really, really different. And it puts the onus on any human. And there's no escaping that. So now we can parse, if somebody has a particular line in here they want to discuss. I want to dwell on line 22, 23. 22 and 23, that's where I want to go. So I'm going to leave it for a minute, let other people see if there's any other line that they want to bring up. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm just thinking like all this stuff about cross-dressing, like maybe it doesn't mean that at all. Maybe it just means that you shouldn't cross-dress in order to like be able to be a woman or be a man. But like, you know, for a woman to wear pants, I mean, women wear pants. And it doesn't mean that they want to be a man or they're dressing like a man to be a man. So like how far, again, you know, like Artie was saying, how far do we take this in today's world? I mean, I can understand maybe the Torah having prohibitions about a woman dressing up in a suit or like Yentl to pretend you're a man and go in among men as a man. But I'm not sure that it actually means that you can't wear pants or, you know, some of the priestly garbs are kind of wear skirts, put on skirts kind of thing too. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure what the actual meaning of dressing like a man or wearing men's clothes means in today's world.
Ruth Ellen and then Arnie.
Well, not in today's world. For I might have thought of this and we might have discussed it in other areas, but it just hit me again. This is an example of the focus is on being your true self, not trying to, Sarah touched on this a little bit, because if you dress the way people expect you to dress in society, then you're not hiding anything. You know, you're being true to who you are. It's more goes with the morals of you shouldn't keep something that you find that belongs to your neighbor, or you shouldn't be trying to pull one over on anybody else that you're dealing with by pretending to be something you're not. And for better or for worse, how the evolution of dress to distinguish between the genders is something that helps people identify how they should relate to somebody. So, you know, it's not specifically whether it's pants or not. It's more like the intent of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. And somebody just put in the chat section, you know, the word kilai or something gear.
Kli.
Kli. it's an all-purpose term that could also refer to weapons, blah, 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 that a woman might, okay, so the thing that's abhorrent about cross-dressing, it could be used in orgiastic activities like pagan magic, or a Hittite text prescribes cross-dressing as the first stage in a ritual for curing impotence. Who put this up here in the chat?
Matan.
Natan.
The
Yeah,
other
so
Arnie.
that's what I was talking about. Like, what's really cross-dressing? Like, if somebody is in the Senate, a woman is in the Senate, and she wears a suit. It's not a man's suit. She's not wearing a suit with a tie. She's wearing a pink suit or a blue suit. Everybody knows she's not trying to be a man. It's just proper attire for that. There's nothing pagan or orgasmic or anything about it. So, yeah.
Arnie, Rabin, you had your hand up, and then we'll go back to Matan.
I was just saying that there had to be a caveat for Purim where, you could dress like Vashti if you're a man. And the other thing is, how about the women in the IDF? Obviously they must be in strict violation,
Good
Matan?
point, Arnie. Good point. That's a great point. So when is it okay and when is it not okay, and who says?
Okay, the other Arnie, known as Matan. You have your hand up.
I just put Matan so there wouldn't be confusion. But I heard an interview with Hillary Clinton, and she said when she was campaigning, she used to wear a skirt or a dress, but a lot of times she was up on a stage, and she was very uncomfortable with wearing, a skirt or a dress because people could look up, and so she started wearing pantsuits
For modesty purposes. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought of Hillary. Yeah, interesting.
Alan?
Well, one of the thoughts that I have in this discussion is what was considered appropriate dress in the time that this was written. The images that we have of so many biblical scenes is everybody's wearing robes. And in fact, it's unusual that the priest has a pair of underpants. Because when the high priest goes into the Holy of Holies, he can't reveal himself, or it would be it would be wrong to do. But I think of what we see in so many of the Muslim countries where the common dress is a robe. You don't see pants. You don't see a difference, and it could be a man or a woman, and really no difference. So I think it lends credence to what Arnie Matan brought up from the Alter translation, that the gear idea potentially refers to something else, perhaps weapons, or not the tools of a trade, that so to speak, and not necessarily something that is gender specific with clothing, because I don't think we can assume that they knew from pants and underwear the way we do.
So I want to bring I probably say this every year because to me, this is at the core of what resonates with me with a sentence like that. It says, deception. If you use the idea of changing your identity for the purpose of deception, that to me seems to be the big prohibition there. So let's take the example of Yentl, since we have such a great picture of it. If a woman could not study Talmud in the society in which she lived, in the time in which she lived, and she had to don men's clothing and pretend to be a man, that is different than putting on the clothing of a woman to get into a harem and avail yourself of being in the company of women to do terrible things, if you wish, right? So it's about deception. But that sentence does not end with a man shall not put on a woman's clothing, etc. It says because it is abhorrent, because those people who do these things are abhorrent to God. So again, we take it as a completeness. In writing laws for humans, there is no end to which we have to go around explaining. And I'm going to go back to Arnie Rabin and say, Arnie, you say things are obvious to you now. Why aren't they obvious to other people? And that is the difficulty of reading these 3 chapters so full of laws. Clearly, we all think differently, right? I know that, oh, let's see, David needs to step out. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, David. He's not gone yet. In the workplace, before I retired, I worked through COVID. And I have to say that under my breath, it was so often that I would mutter, it's a little easier for me because I'm Jewish and because we've committed to this Torah study, because sometimes there is no obvious and there is no exact, but things have happened. These laws are written because things have happened. Maybe it is exactly that. You know, we have, we don't read the further writings, we only read the Torah as part of our study, but if you read the further writings, there are many examples of deception and people killing for reasons that they think are correct. What are they doing? They're assuming the mantle of God by making these decisions. So the sentence does not conclude with because it is wrong or because of anything, because it is abhorrent. All those people are abhorrent to God. It's up to you to interpret. So in the character that was created for, you know, for the story of Yentl, honorable purpose. Well, I couldn't study Torah any other way, or couldn't study Talmud any other way. But in the instance of a peeper wanting to make it into a girl's locker room, so it's the people behind the actions that are abhorrent. Anyhow, Ruth Ellen, and then we maybe should move on.
I just try to skim through Sefaria to see what this kind of standard commentary was. There's some in the Hebrew I can't read, but the English a lot of the earlier rabbis are pointing to the context of this. So to some degree, it is a product of its time. This is really a code for the fact that what was abhorrent is women should not go to war. And then it bring a lot of this is what we would get upset with in the modern times, because it's just like the rules about how women dress and in Arab or in ultra-Orthodox, because if women went, there would be a temptation. There's a temptation from the male soldiers to fornicate with the women, you know, and all that, which is not what they're supposed to be there to do. And this again goes to the point that human beings are feeble and make mistakes, you know. So whether we agree for that in modern times, I don't know, but you know, I think I can't quote my husband exactly, but you know, he was an entertainer and he went around as Captain Magic and he wore his Navy device on his head. Well, people in the military, you're not, if you're in the military, you're supposed to be in the proper uniform, but if you're not, then there's rules about that too. But one of them is, as long as you're dressed to meet the occasion, you're okay, you know. So we could apply that to this too. If women have to, in modern times, become warriors, you know, then it's all like Arnie said, kavanah, the intention of it.
So let's take that sentence, the line 22.5, I think it is, and let's go back to 21, line 22 and 23. And should there be, should there be against a man a death sentence offense, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, you shall not let his corpse stay the night on the tree, but you shall surely bury it on that day. Why? For a hanged man is God's curse. Oh, this is not the translation I was looking at earlier. For a hanged man is God's curse, and you shall not pollute your soil that the Lord your God is about to give you in estate. Oh, interesting. So in my translation, it says, for an impaled body is an affront to God. And I was going to build what I said on that. So that kind of changes it for me. But again,
also calls it a curse.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And in this translation, it's also a curse. Mm-hmm. But I wanted the similarity I wanted to draw is because both are an affront or abhorrent to God. So this sentence is one of the ones that is used to talk about the Jewish tradition of burying a body soon after death. There's lots of explanations to that, but as it pertains to this one, there's so much there. It's really, really rich. First of all, in at least in American history, a hanged body, as in a lynching, would hang for a very long time as a deterrent to others. But not just because of that, as a reason for people to believe they did the right thing, right? But it's not hanging. First of all, deciding on a death sentence is so complicated that it should be rare. The Torah acknowledges that. Just even the simplicity of saying, oh, but you need two witnesses who actually witnessed it, and then you need, a jury, and then you need a judge. It makes it very, very complicated, so that the death sentence would very rarely happen. And I think there's lots of rabbinic writing about why, because, every human is created in that same image of God. So deciding to kill a human is a small act of, an act against God. So, there's that complexity. But the idea that the hanging is because a crime was proven and somebody actually did something, they got their sentence, take the body down. It's not about what it means to the rest of society. It's not about making you feel like you did the right thing or self-congratulatory. It is very pragmatically, that person was so guilty that the death sentence was actually used, it's done. And any more of it to say, I was a good judge, or I proved my point, or me, is so abhorrent to God. Take the body down and bury it immediately.
I also think this adds. Oh, Craig is about to say something. Craig, did you want to?
Go ahead, Alan.
Well, I think this enters into it something that we hadn't anticipated before, and that is another means of carrying out a death penalty. The times we've had it described before, it's something that's done communally, that the community comes out and everyone is involved in carrying out the sentence if it actually gets carried out. And in fact, I think in last week's Parsha, there was reference to the accusers being the ones who are going to cast the stones to begin the process. But in this case, when you're talking about a hanging, you have now a procedure where there's an executioner, somebody who's been hired by or appointed by the community to carry this out, unless it's going to be a lynching, and then you've got mob rule. But it's something that we didn't have any reference to that before, the idea of a hanging, and whether it means hanging from a tree or putting their head on a post. It's that image that you have of a warning to others, but it enters into this now, a process that could be part of our history.
Craig?
There is a lot of history here and a lot of precedent setting. And for people who at one point say that the death penalty should be so rare, once in 70 years, that sort of thing. But for people who don't really inflict the death penalty, we have a lot of rituals around it. Now, I don't think the Jews authorize hanging. I think the Torah says that there are 4 ways of putting somebody to death: stoning, burning, beheading, and strangulation. I think the hanging they're talking about is something carried out perhaps by non-Jews, and we come upon it and we take the body down. Jews also don't believe in crucifixion and leaving a body up there as an example. And part of it, I suppose, is, oh, well, we're better than that. But still, we're talking about a lot of violence when we're talking about stoning to death a child who acts inappropriately, in effect, raping a woman who's been captured in a war. It's a little bit of violence light and preemptive violence. And we all try to say we don't want to be that violent, but maybe God is talking about a necessity to be violent and maybe even preemptively. I don't agree with that. But if you execute a kid, it's a little preemptive, and it's kind of the concept of a bad seed. And we have seen various examples, a president who was terrible as a child, such that his parents sent him to military school, or another child who became a heroin addict and is now in charge of all of our health. It's like, how much damage can these people do? Why don't we stop them earlier? These are the things that I'm thinking about as we encounter this Torah portion.
Again, I just remind us that laws are there to fill in the gaps in morality. Morality is always available. Morality does not get taken away from people even when their flesh is burned off their body, as we learn in our Jewish tradition. The more laws you have, the more you understand how immoral a society has become. And that's why reading in the context of history gives us a picture of history. Who is it that said, looking in our rear view mirror is the only safe way to, it's one of the important aspects of driving safely, right? You got to look in your rear view mirror in order to go forward. That's, so the more bogged down we get with these things, the more it's like, oh yeah, that's right. We're talking about humans, aren't we? To me, that's becomes more obvious with every year, and with every year that we're living in the history we're living in now. Every example you just brought, Craig, in a different generation or in a different time, it would mean something. So what does it mean that things that were once commonly understood to be so not okay that someone could be, maybe impeached for them, and now we're like, yeah, that's boring. We're just moving on. We don't need to think about that anymore. We've evolved. It's a constant reminder.
We elect a felon.
Craig, did you want to say something before I go to speak?
I also wanted to comment, bringing it back to last week, and I guess I'm a feminist or whatever, but the patriarchy involved here, how the men get to take these women whose husbands have been killed in war and make them their wives if they're good looking. It just seems that the patriarchy that has led to problems in the world kind of flows through the Torah.
And the Constitution.
It was a
and the
patriarchal
Constitution. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that you say flows through the Torah, and I wanted to add and the Constitution. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, it's definitely patriarchal. I mean, this idea that women can only, dress a certain way, they couldn't study Talmud. Why couldn't a woman study Talmud? Why is there a prohibition?
It's a
against
tradition
that?
of the time. It's not in the Torah. It's a tradition of a time.
That's right. So it's a patriarchal tradition to keep women dumb.
Yehuda, you had your hand up, so speak because already other hands are going up.
Vis-a-vis lines 22, 23, I think the main point here, to simplify, is that life and its companion, death, are to be celebrated. They're a miracle, and that that's never to be forgotten, that there is a miracle that created life, and life includes death. And there's a respect that goes hand in hand with that. Behind all of that stuff about death is the respect.
Thank you. Matan?
Following up on that, I suspect this is in Talmud, but I have heard it said that the reason we have a shomer is because if you have a corpse that's unburied, the nefesh is not at the nefesh, the soul, the life force is not at rest. Is that true?
Say that again?
If you have an unburied corpse, the nefesh, the soul, the life force is not at rest. And that's why there's a shomer to watch the body.
Hmm.
The one time I participated in that, I got a number of different explanations. That's certainly one of them. But I don't know enough about it to say anything. But that was one of the concepts, is that the soul is an in-between space and must be accompanied until the final burial. And I didn't actually know about that.
And that's not only the case in Judaism, it's also the case in other religions as well. Like in Hinduism, there's a part once the corpse is burning, the family is supposed to hold their mourning until this time when the corpse is fully burning. Then they have to walk away, like they walk a block down the Ghats, and they can cry or wail or whatever as a family. And the reason for that is the soul is still there. The idea that the soul is lingering. It's also the same idea in Judaism of why you're buried, that if you're burned, the body misses, the soul misses the body and vice versa. There's still a connection there. So you're not in Hinduism, you're not supposed to mourn in front of the body. So you walk away so that it allows the soul to leave the body, not hear this mourning, which tends to draw the soul back or keep it from leaving. So I think it's in different, I don't know what the Muslim or Buddhist, I don't know about them, but yeah.
I feel like we could do an entire study just on, these individual laws. But the common thing in some of the next few laws is that idea of do not ignore. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And if people want to continue, let's continue.
I just have one question, quick question. What if I wonder what happened when a woman or a girl loses her virginity, not by sex? I mean, it's well known that like just horseback riding or doing heavy work, you can lose your virginity. You can
What is it?
actually break the hymen and bleed, and then of course the first time you have sex, you're not gonna bleed. There's nothing there to stop it. So that is also something that I wonder if that ever happened back then and how
I'm
that
sure there are volumes written on that too, but that's also various religions look at it completely differently. So I'm not going there. I mean, I haven't read about it. I'm not all that interested because again, patriarchy.
Yeah.
And I will
It's
say
just a
that
thought. Yeah, just a thought.
I think the patriarchy thing is very troubling, but I actually have a friend here in the community that I'm really trying to get to start coming to services because she clearly is Jewish and she clearly has something that's stopping her. And for her, it's all about the patriarchy. That one thing, I can think of a million things that would bother me and say, yeah, I don't want to associate with that. But the patriarchy is a big one, but I think it's incumbent upon us to see beyond it or put it where it belongs and say people were limited, men were limited by their own imagination. I don't know. Ruth Ellen, go ahead, and then we're going to keep reading, I hope.
Well, you keep bringing things up, to play sort of the devil's advocate here. The argument for the separation of the tasks of the different genders is said to be because it's natural. It's a natural imperative. It's not that the woman's role is not important, but it will be different. And it's defined by the fact that females can bear children. And their biggest obligation is to prepare the next generation. Now, I always say in the old, and even like the prescriptions against homosexuality and all that in the past, in today's world, You don't necessarily need a woman and a man together to make a child anymore, right? And in those days as
No.
well, they were more, mortality rates were higher. The survival of their tribes, of the species depended on continuous procreation because so many of the children didn't make it to adulthood. That kind of thing is in the times. And to some degree, the mores of the people changed with the technology of the times. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. I just think it is. So, and I think probably Talmudically, there's a way, because reading between the lines, that's why taking all this stuff literally today is what gets us into trouble. I just thought, to the degree that supposedly devout people say this is the word of God, the way it was written, explicitly, forgetting the fact that they've already translated it 5 times from the original and then say this is the way it's meant to be. But anyway, I'm rambling a little bit on that, but.
Alan?
Well, this makes me think of the passage that we often read in our services, the Ilufinu, even if our mouths, was it, I'm looking at what the wording is, even if our mouths were as filled with song as water fills the seas, and how Barry loves to explain that, I think he attributes this to Morty Breyer, that all of those things can be accomplished by the modern technology that we've developed. So we have microphones and speakers that can make our voices heard miles away. We have airplanes that let us fly like birds. So I think that the same thing could be applied with if there were views in the time that this was written that women were not capable of doing certain things. The technology has changed that. If you accept that women might have different strengths than men, and I'm not saying I accept that, but if that's the reasoning, because all of this makes me come back to and I don't want to come down on our Hasidic friends, but they're trying to live in modern times with these restrictions that were placed on a society that had totally different opportunities, totally different capabilities, that would classify people by gender in specific roles for reasons that don't matter anymore. And I think that for us to stick to that just because it's written in the Torah doesn't do the Torah any justice. It was in there to get, as you said at the very beginning, to make us think about some of these things, but not necessarily to act that way anymore because the world has changed and our place in it has changed.
Boy, whatever you said, Alan, you got people to jump up and raise their hand. So I think, go ahead. Let's go Sarah first and then Ruth Ellen.
I just want to say this is still going on right now today. We had, in my estimation, Hillary Clinton was more than qualified to be president, and yet she was sideways, stopped at every turn. And it's just like in this country, a woman can't be president. So it's still the patriarchy. The details are different in modern times, but it's still the same. Different details, still the same. We had the same thing with Harris, Kamala Harris, more than qualified. So anyway, I'm over it.
Understandably. Ruth Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll bring back, this is a theme that I've had before. In order to advance, I think what we have to do, we recognize that individuals have different gifts. I look back at this. I give the example always of when Hashem says, this is the best woodworker is going to do this. This is the best goldsmith. And then unfortunately back then, those jobs were only available to men. If we really want to evolve as a society, we have to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of individuals, work for the common good of the community, but not judge who can do what based on their gender. And on top of that, in the Bible, there are all these exceptions to every rule. That's what we study the most. We have Devorah. We have all these, we have the matriarchs who under the table, or supposedly they didn't have that power, but they changed the course of history, or a Rebecca or a Rachel, or Sarah. And what I forget, and then we end up with female judges, and then we had Miriam, so it's if there's a divine guidance and people have a calling and they are given gifts, they should be able to use them. That's what we should take away from all of this, that we tend not to when we put people into categories and decide only you can do this, only you can do that. And that's, if humanity is stuck in that because of fear or hubris or ego, and that way of looking at things becomes the norm for the whole society, we're in trouble. Now, on the other hand, humans, the way our brains work, there are norms, okay? So men have more muscle mass. They are more likely to be able to throw a ball farther than a woman, but not every individual man can throw a ball farther than every individual woman. So if we could just get to the point of accepting, and meeting every person based on their intentions, their level of living honorably in this world, and then go from there, then we wouldn't have all these distinctions that really have outlived their value.
All right, let's read. And Alan, this is a random place, but we're going to read through 23:3. I know it sounds odd, but we have to kind of move on. So I'll remind you when to stop. Okay, someone read. Okay, I'll look at the screen and ask someone to read. Craig Silverman, would you like to read?
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Here we go. Should a bird's nest chance to be before you on the way or in any tree or on the ground with fledglings or eggs, and the mother is crouched over the fledglings or over the eggs, you shall not take the mother together with the children. You shall surely send off the mother, and the children you may take for yourself, so that it may go well with you, and you will enjoy length of days. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof, that you not put blood guilt in your house should someone fall from it. You shall not plant your vineyard with mixed seeds, lest the ripe crop be proscribed, the seed that you plant and the yield of the vineyard. You shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. You shall not wear sha'atnez, wool and linen together. Tassels you shall make yourself on the four corners of your garment with which you cover yourself. Should a man take a woman and come to bed with her and hate her, and impute to her misconduct and put out a bad name for her and say, this woman did I take, and I came close to her, and I found no signs of virginity for her. The young woman's father and her mother shall take and bring out to the elders of the town at the gate the signs of the young woman's virginity. And the young woman's father shall say to the elders, my daughter I gave to this man as wife, and he hated her. And look, he has imputed misconduct, saying, I found no signs of virginity for your daughter, but these are the signs of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread out the garment before the elders of the town. And the elders of that town shall take the man out and punish him. And they shall fine him 100 weights of silver and give it to the young woman's father, for he put out a bad name for a virgin in Israel. And she shall be his wife. He shall not be able to send her away ever.
God.
But if this thing be true, no signs of virginity were found for the young woman, they shall take the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her town shall stone her to death, for she has done a scurrilous thing in Israel, to play the whore in her own father's house, and you shall root out the evil from your midst. Should a man be found lying with a woman who has a husband, both of them shall die, the man lying with the woman and the woman as well, and you shall root out the evil from Israel. Should there be a virgin young woman betrothed to a man, and a man find her in the town and lie with her, You shall bring them both out to the gate of that town and stone them to death, the young woman for her not crying out in the town, and the man for his abusing his fellow man's wife, and you shall root out the evil from your midst.
God.
But should the man find the betrothed young woman in the field, and the man seize her and lie with her, only the man lying with her shall die. And to the young woman shall do nothing. The young woman bears no capital offense, for as a man rises against his neighbor and murders him, so is this thing. For he found her in the field, the young woman could have cried out, and there would have been none to save her. Should a man find a virgin young woman who is not betrothed, and take hold of her and lie with her, and they be found, the man lying with her shall give to the young woman's father 50 weights of silver, and she shall be his wife inasmuch as he abused her. He shall not be able to send her away all his days. A man shall not wed his father's wife, and he shall not uncover his father's skirt. No one with crushed testes or lot members shall come into the Lord's assembly. No misbegotten bastard shall come into the Lord's assembly. Even his 10th generation shall not come into the Lord's assembly. No Ammonite nor Moabite shall come into the Lord's assembly. Even his 10th generation shall not come into the Lord's assembly ever, because they did not greet you with bread and water on the way when you came out of Egypt, and for their hiring against you Balaam, son of Beor, from Aram Naharaim, to curse you. But the Lord your God did not want to listen to Balaam, and the Lord your God turned the curse into blessing for you. For the Lord your God loves you. You shall not seek their well-being and their good all your days forever. You shall not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not abhor an Egyptian, for you were a sojourner in his land. The sons that are born to them, their 3rd generation, may come into the Lord's assembly. When you sally forth in a camp against your enemy, you shall keep yourself from every evil thing. Should there be among you a man who is not clean through nocturnal emission, he shall go outside the camp and not come into the camp. And it shall be toward evening, he shall bathe in water, and as the sun sets, he may come inside the camp. And you shall have a marker outside the camp, and shall go there outside, and you shall have a spike together with your battle gear. And it shall be when you sit outside, you shall dig with it, and go back and cover your excrement. For the Lord your God walks about in the midst of your camp to rescue you, and to give your enemies before you, and your camp shall be holy, that he should not see among you anything shamefully exposed and turn back from you.
All right, I'm kind of lost, but what line was that? Was that 9?
15. That was,
15.
yeah.
Okay.
Did I go too far?
No, it's fine. I just am trying to move along because each one of these stands on its own in the same way that it does not stand anywhere on its own. So we can choose any one and discuss it independently. But again, I'm just reminding us that this is kind of a rush job where Moses has a lot to still reiterate before, whatever happens next. So that feeling of trying to go too far, I'm just going to make a note. 23:16 is where we start again. Okay. Comments. Let's see. Matan put something in the chat from Alter. Ugh. Okay. Okay, what was that pertaining to oh shoot, there's too much for me to. Can you summarize for us, Matan, a couple of the things you put in there?
Okay, it's just slightly different nuances in the translation. And also, I found it interesting is they talked about he shall not uncover.
Hold on a sec. Craig, you have 2 devices on. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Matan.
Okay, and I found it interesting about he shall not uncover his father's skirt. I didn't quite understand what that meant. And Alters talks about it in terms of the previous line about not coming in contact with any part of his father's wife.
That particular phrasing, there are at least two other places where it comes up. One is Noah's sons.
He
And
mentions that. Yeah.
and the other is Lot or Lot and his daughters who copulate with him because the end of the world is coming and they want to, you know, there's that wording, right? So it's always more loaded than it looks on the surface, but in Torah study, you're supposed to see where else that same phraseology was used in order to give it context.
Yeah, he mentions Ham. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's one of Noah's sons.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Shem, Ham, and Yefet. Yeah. All right. So
I would.
oh,
Oh, good.
go ahead, Ellen.
No, I was going to say I was struck again by toward the beginning of that reading with the woman and the man getting together in town. They'll both be put to death, but out in the country, the woman gets spared because if she called out, there would be nobody to come help her. And I thought that's kind of I don't get that logic. And there's no indication. I mean, it reminds me of, or makes me think of the expression that we're being taught now of no means no. And so whether she says no in the city or no in the country, it should mean the same thing. And why should she be punished if somebody is taking her by force? No
And
matter
our
where.
very current American history and some of what we all got to watch on news, you know, specifically a very well planned news conference, it says that even in the city, even if you cry out in our current society, so far, and I want to say, Sarah, I'm saying so far because none of us will live long enough to see some of these corrections, but over time they might happen. But calling out, even when there are ears to listen, does not mean anyone. Hearing is not the same as listening. So calling out does not mean that your message is reaching anybody's brain. And that is part of the patriarchy. Okay, Ruth Ellen.
Mine is real quick because I think again, Alan, I almost did too. You get wrapped up in the Bible speak. It's not what it said because the first instance, he's talking about people who were being adulterous. The woman was part of it. It's not that she was just in the country. That was their way of saying she was just a girl who happened to be working in the field. That's their way of saying she was not related to him. They didn't know each other, and he took a hankering to her and had his way with her. So, you know, I think it's even said something even in the city, if it was untoward or if it was literally a rape and not a situation of adultery, that's then, you know, it's only the attacker, which is I'm presuming is the man, who will be punished. So I think that's a fine line there, but I think you missed it reading through the whole thing because it runs together. You know?
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Each one of these individual lines are worthy of discussion, for sure. Okay, does someone else have their hand up? I want to go back to the image of the mother bird. And again, let's look at, you don't have to turn the page unless I can't find it. It was immediately where we started reading. Okay, so if you come across, if a bird's nest chanced to be before thee in the way, in any tree, okay. Should a bird's nest chance to be before you on the way or in any tree on the ground with fledgling or eggs, and the mother is crouched over the fledgling or over the eggs, you shall not take the mother together with the children. Why? You shall surely, not just you will send off, you shall surely, shalach teshalech, that doubling. You shall surely send off the mother and the children you may take for yourself, so that it may go well with you. You will enjoy length of days. So is it about sparing the mother bird or sparing your own guilty conscience that you might have to live? Because it may shorten the length of your days. right? Lots of ways to read that one sentence. So that it will be good for you and your days will be long on the land, which it doesn't say it there, but in the other places where it says so that your days will be long, in the land that I have promised your ancestors, right? So it goes back to it, it never leaves that realm of, in order for society not to destroy itself yet again, here are a few rules sprinkled in. So
I have something to say about that one. Alter says in the commentary, others have detected here a pragmatic or ecological consideration. If one makes a practice of killing both fledglings and mother, the race of birds will not be able to reproduce itself.
yep. And you know, how much more obvious it's there that there's not just one way to read it. And coming on the heels of 3 times in the starting with the mention of, if you find your neighbor's donkey, you shall surely return it, combined with, and you're not at liberty to ignore it. There's definitely a thread. And if you want to just say, oh, the world is all about me, then yes, you are being spared a guilty conscience, which may cause you, you know, right? If you just want to make it about yourself, there's a simplicity there. That's available too.
But it really seems like it starts out one way. You think, oh, this is humane. You don't want to take the children in front of the mother, but you're going to take the children no matter what. So what difference does it make? Is it the guilty conscience that you're talking about? Are we assuming that the mother is not going to mourn the loss of her chicks or eggs? It is there's something where it goes is so dissatisfying from where it starts. Where it starts, you're saying this is humane, like not seething a calf in its mother's milk. The prescription that we had earlier that leads to not being able to have a cheeseburger, but the idea that would be the ultimate insult is that not only did you kill the child, but you also cooked it in something that came from, and so it seems like it's something humane. But here, I guess the implication is birds don't have the same feelings that we have.
Well, I think there's a very clear thread that starts in Bereshit, in the very, very beginning, with the first iteration of creation and the second iteration of creation, that the condition of being human is unique. And that is the ability to know and the inability to ever forget that your actions affect the world around you. So when I read this thing about the mother bird, it's clear. There are a few things that are clear. So there's an ecological aspect. Humans are not here to rule the earth, but to tend it. So the ecological aspect, if you take the mother and the eggs, you're going to obliterate this particular variety species, right? So there's that. There's the, because it's the wrong thing to do. You're causing another creature of God to be distraught. And then there's a third element, that you may carry that distress your whole life. And all of those you can avoid with one action, right? So yes, you can just not eat the bird at all, right? Not eat the eggs or the bird. One option. But we're human and we have weaknesses and some realities, because there are places in the world where if humans did not eat things that came from animals, they wouldn't exist. The poles, the places where, that's a reality. It's a reality. And those same people, the Inuit, are creatures of God in the same way that those of us who grow food in our backyard are creatures of God. So why are we more deserving, right? We are able to grow food, but we are able to harvest animal food without destroying all of animal kingdom. These are human qualities. Tough on us. we know all of this, so we can't, are we at liberty to ignore it? It's tough on us. We are not at liberty to ignore it. That's what these odd rules say to me. Were you gonna say something, Marilyn?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't even get this up here. Am I on there?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're on. We can hear you.
Okay. I was gonna say that not only are we not at liberty to ignore it, but the going over it makes it impossible to ignore it. I mean, not only not at liberty, it's in your face. You have to think about it because it's put on your platter. Our platter, not your platter, our platter.
A few other themes in the lines that we just read. There was a reference back to Balak or Bilam. I wrote a note to go back to it, but I didn't write the line number, so I'm not going to. I'm going to let us lead on forward. We can come back to it. If I find it, I'll come back to it. Okay, so we're at 23:16. The reason I'm rushing this forward is because the last two lines of this parasha have been very relevant recently, and I don't want to not get to them. So who wants to read? Yehuda, would you like to read? I've got to see my people. I don't know if anyone's. Yeah, okay.
You shall not hand over to his master a slave who escapes to you from his master. With you he shall stay in your midst, in the place that he chooses within one of your gates, wherever is good for him. You shall not mistreat him. There shall be no cult harlot from the daughters of Israel, and there shall be no cult catamite, which is a male prostitute, from the sons of Israel. You shall not bring a whore's pay, nor a dog's price to the house of the Lord your God for any votive offering, for both of them are the abhorrence of your Lord the God. You shall not exact interest from your brother, interest of silver, interest of food, or interest of anything that will bear interest. From the stranger you may exact interest, but from your brother you shall not exact interest, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all that your hand reaches on the land to which you are coming to take hold of it. Should you make a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay fulfilling it, for the Lord your God will surely require it of you, and there would be an offense in you. And should you refrain from making a vow, there will be no offense in you. The utterance of your lips you shall keep, and you shall do as you have vowed to the Lord your God, the free will gift that you spoke with your mouth. Should you come into your fellow man's vineyard, you may eat grapes as much as you crave to your fill, but you shall not put them in your pouch. Should you come into your fellow man's standing grain, you may pluck tender ears with your hand, but you shall not wield the sickle on your fellow man's standing grain. When a man takes a wife and cohabits with her, it shall be, if she does not find favor in his eyes because he finds in her some shamefully exposed thing, and he writes her a document of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her away from his house, and she goes out from his house and goes and becomes another man's, I assume wife, and the second man hates her and writes her a document of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her away from his house, or the second man who took her to him as wife dies. Her first husband who sent her away shall not be able to come back and take her to be his wife after she has been defiled, for it is an abhorrence before the Lord, and you shall not leave the land to offend that the Lord your God is about to give you an estate. When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out in the army and shall not cross over on its account for any matter. He shall be exempt in his house for a year and gladden his wife whom he has taken. One may not take in pawn a hand mill or an upper millstone, for one would be taking in pawn a life. Should a man be found stealing a living person of his brothers, of the Israelites, and garner profit from him and sell him, that thief shall die, and you shall root out this evil from your midst. Watch yourself in regard to the plague of skin blanch, to watch carefully and to do, according to all that the Levitical priests will teach you as I have charged them, you shall watch to do. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you came out of Egypt.
Okay.
That's a horrible translation. Yuck. Oh my God. Come on. That's not how we use English. Sorry.
Which translation are you using, Alan? Is it CCAR?
Is Alter. This one is the Alter translation.
Oh, interesting. Yehuda doesn't like it, clearly. I think Alter is trying to use terms that would not be specific only to understood only by Jews. I think that, I mean, sometimes I like Alter more than others, but because I always look at two. One is very kind of old style and arcane. That's the Hertz, which is the JPS. And then my other is the CCAR, which is the same as what you have, the Plout. I think the translation is the same, just the commentary is different. So
one of the things that I gravitate towards, this is from what I had read, and we discussed it earlier too, is that Alter made an attempt to be true to the Hebrew, and not change some of the idioms or change it into I guess other expressions. It's a more direct translation, but it creates that problem because what looks right in Hebrew doesn't necessarily look right in English.
Yeah, and you know that, because the the richness of Hebrew, where literally a word can mean one thing and its complete opposite. This, I think it's part of the lack of comfort that we are offered, or the discomfort we are guaranteed. There's every year that I read the same words, I find a relevance that I didn't see a different year. And that is because Hebrew is that way, and it allows us to do that. And I do really believe that is at the core of the instruction to study. So you can't translate that concept into a language like English. Okay, so Matan put in what? The prohibition against interest. Okay, I'm going to just read this one as an example of what Matan is posting. The prohibition against interest, the term, at least etymologically, means bite, is predicated on an agrarian society of brothers in which loans are extended as a form of temporary charity. The ban may not have included properly mercantile loans, and it was not generally applied as Israelite society became more fully urbanized. Foreigners can be required to pay interest because the paradigmatic case would be foreign merchants traveling among the Israelites for business purposes. You know what? I'm reading this now and I'm thinking tariffs.
Mhm.
Can we apply this thought to tariffs?
But the term brother, that phrase in the translation at least, it repeats what we had earlier about your brother, like your brother's animals, and it's not your brother by family connection. The idea is that everybody in the community is your brother. So how we're looking out for each other. But I know we've discussed this before, but it just stands out as one of those passages that has come back to haunt us in many ways. I mean, the Merchant of Venice is the whole plot of it is gone if you take this out and say, oh, it doesn't mean that you can't that you can charge interest to others but not a member of the tribe. But the idea that we have a different set of rules when we've been told in many different ways that the stranger among you should get treated the same as your family, as your community, and yet here we get this distinction that's being made. And as I say, this is one that has come back to haunt us.
Yehuda?
It might have come back to haunt us, specifically leading to tremendous anti-Semitism toward us, because the Christians took this at the word, which basically required that someone step into the gap and actually lend money for interest so that society and business could move forward. Since Jews themselves were not, in many places, were not allowed to own land, they lived in the cities, so this is one of the things they did. And it led to anti-Semitism because the Christians themselves couldn't be used serious.
Yep. It's not very far of a stretch to say, if you create a society where the food you need to feed your children so that they live has to be acquired by monetary needs, and then all you need to do is deprive someone of the monetary needs and they become criminals if they need to feed their children, right? So these are big societal warnings. The concept of anti-Semitism is variable. It is molded to fit the moment. So if you first declare that Jews can't own land and then they can only deal in commerce, then you put restrictions on commerce so that no matter what, you end up with making Jews criminals. Same with Jim Crow laws. All you got to do is figure out any way to get someone in jail for one day on a felony, and boom, legally, you have deprived them of everything else. Legally, not illegally. So it's not that big a stretch, but it, I think, goes, it's all of this is tied hand in hand with the term Kol Israel arevim ze lazeh. All Israel is responsible one for another. And who's the one for another? Here, biblically, when we say brothers, we don't mean born of the same mother necessarily. And again, it's because it takes a society for any one person to thrive. Thriving alone is lonely. And I don't even know if there's such a thing as thriving alone. Thriving requires society. And then the opposite is true. If you reject society, woes will come. Sarah, go ahead. You have your hand up.
I'm kind of caught here in a quagmire because the idea of the Orthodox communities, okay, like not charging interest to a fellow Jew. In Orthodox communities, pretty much it's a closed society. Not that a person can't walk into an Orthodox grocery store or bakery and buy something, but mostly it's to keep the community contained and away from the outer society, which can cause anti-Semitism. On the other hand, you know, immersing yourself in society seems to have led to a watering down of the Jewish community, intermarriage and all this other. So it's kind of a quagmire. And I don't know, what the solution is for that, but I think it's important for us to recognize that we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, kind of thing.
You are speaking to the core of why we have so many Jewish movements. Let's not forget that the model of what Hasidism looks like physically came as a reactionary reaction, okay, to that a time and place, as did some of the more modern Jewish movements, both for the positive and negative, right?
Well, you think it's a reaction though to anti-Semitism in a big way.
In some ways, it's a reaction to anti-Semitism, but some of the Jewish movements are a reaction to what they consider losing the tribalism of Judaism from the inside. And
from the inside, but isn't it also as a result of the pogroms and the Holocaust and other I don't know what the word, other attacks on Jews as a people?
I think all of it, Sarah. I don't think any of it does not fit into what you're saying. It stems from a number of things that are understandable to us. First of all, human nature. This idea that human nature is fragile. And for example, if you look at history and you say all that's really needed in order to create conflict and war is for somebody to cause other people to hate each other, right? And that can be in any form, by blaming this for this or blaming them for this or that. All you need to be in power is to cause other people down below to fight each other, and boom, you got power. Tried and true formula, living through it in these days, okay? But the way that relates to Judaism, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, is what the misunderstanding about the chosenness is all about. The chosenness, as I see it as a Jew, is an onus. It is not a gift.
Well, Jews don't say to each other we're chosen. It's the Gentiles that question, what do you mean by chosen?
Some Jews,
mostly, okay.
Some Jews, and you need to look no farther to current politics in the land that we love, Israel, will tell you that some people look at it exactly as that, a gift only for us, everyone else be damned, because God promised it, the land, the goods, only to us. That is a very, very prevalent thought among current movements in Israel who happen to be religious. They're considered the religious nationalists. So, it's a very complex thing, but the religious nationalists very much believe that. Now, is it a reaction to anti-Semitism, or is it causing more anti-Semitism?
Oh,
right, exactly. If you look mathematically, I think it's causing more anti-Semitism. And that's because I really think that this idea of chosenness can be taken any way you want it, but I can't unsee that it is a burden to be carried, and only if you're willing to carry it could your days be long. Right? I don't see it any other way, because like every fourth or fifth sentence, there's a reminder of that. So that every now and again, even Moses in writing this says, oh, people might misunderstand this. They might think, oh, it's too much, too many laws. But why are they here? As a warning, because the land that is promised so that all the world sees what it takes to live in community, it's not guaranteed. It takes work. And Moses recognizes that. And I get the sense, I don't know where this comes from. I get the sense that Moses feels like he's running out of time. Like he doesn't know that there's only 3 more chapters or 4 more chapters. You know that. But you get this sense from the amount of stuff. These last 2 parashot, it's like mind-boggling. And there's more. Go ahead, Alan.
In line with that, I think there's something maybe the Torah doesn't seem to be very big on irony, but toward the end of the portion that Yehuda just read is line 24:7. Should a man be found stealing a living person of his brothers of the Israelites and garner profit from him and sell him, that thief shall die, and you shall root out the evil from your midst. What is that describing? That's describing the story of Joseph. And the brothers who did that are the ones who are the tribes are named for, and that we're not necessarily celebrating, but they're being honored, they being awarded the land in the where they're going. So if in the promised land, so if what they did is a capital offense, it really jumps out to say, we better put something in here that we don't want this to happen again, maybe? I don't know, but it just, the fact that it's in there and it is exactly what the brothers did is just a certain irony about it, I think. Maybe intentional.
And also with the incest
Yes.
thing, that's another, yeah. Let's put something in there so that doesn't happen again. So societal rules develop along with the society and the changes in society.
I guess you could say more generally, that's also the notion of when you get to the land that I will show you, you know, in other words, it's making that distinction. Once you cross over and the covenant is going to be recommitted to, and the chosenness has to be accepted, then forget anything that happened in the past and don't be tempted to say, well, but what about back then when they did it? No, you know, it's different. So I think that's part and parcel of it. That's part of it.
And maybe just like about parenting, so much of the Torah is a cautionary tale. That if you do these things, no good is going to come of it. And then we'll show you how.
The future will not be guaranteed. I really don't know how to read some of these lines. They are about as odd as they get.
You want me to read?
Sure, read for a chunk.
Should you make a loan of anything to your fellow man, you shall not come into his house to take his pledge. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you have made the loan shall bring out the pledge to you outside. And if he is a poor man, you shall not lie down in his pledge. You shall surely give the pledge back to him as the sun sets, that he may lie down in his cloak and bless you, and it may be a merit for you before the Lord your God. You shall not oppress a poor and needy hired worker from your brothers or from your sojourners who are in your land within your gates. In his day you shall give his wages, and the sun shall not set on him, for he is poor, and his heart counts on it, that he call not against you to the Lord, and there be an offense in you. Fathers shall not be put to death over sons, and sons shall not be put to death over fathers. Each man shall be put to death for his own offense. You shall not skew the case of a sojourner or an orphan, and you shall not take as pawn a widow's garment. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God ransomed you from there. Therefore do I charge you to do this thing. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to take it. For the sojourner and for the orphan and for the widow it shall be, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not strip the branches of what is left behind you. For the sojourner, for the orphan, and for the widow it shall be. When you glean your vineyard, you shall not pluck the young grapes left behind you. For the sojourner, for the orphan, and for the widow it shall be. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt. Therefore do I charge you to do this thing. When there is a dispute between men, they shall approach the court of justice, and they shall judge them and find for the one in the right and against the one in the wrong. And it shall be, if the one in the wrong deserves blows, the judge shall make him lie down and have him struck before him, according to his wrongdoing in number. 40 blows he may strike him, he shall not go farther, lest he go on to strike him beyond these a great many blows, and your brothers seem of no account in your eyes. You shall not muzzle an ox when it threshes. Should brothers dwell together and one of them die and have no son, the wife of the dead man shall not become the wife outside to a stranger. Her brother-in-law shall come to bed with her and take her to him as a wife and carry out a brother-in-law's duty toward her. And it shall be, the firstborn whom she bears shall be established in the name of his dead brother, that his name be not wiped out from Israel. And if the man does not want to wed his sister-in-law shall go up to the gate to the others and say, my brother-in-law has refused to establish a name for his brother, a name in Israel. He did not want to carry out a brother-in-law's duty toward me. And the elders of his town shall call to him and speak to him. And if he stands and says, I do not want to wed her, his sister-in-law shall approach him before the eyes of the elders and slip his sandal from his foot and spit in his face and speak out and say, so shall be done to the man who will not build his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of the slipped off sandal. The house of the slipped off sandal. Take that sandal and whack him with it.
Could have been the House of the Right, and it'd be a different song, I guess. But
I like how they stick the ox there. Don't muzzle. Muzzle the ox. I forget when he's thrashing. I mean, it's like sort of just stuck in there.
That's why, from the
It
first,
seems a little out of place.
it seems a little rushed, doesn't it?
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of, leaving the leftovers in the field for the widow and the sojourner and everything, but then it's like back and forth between the field and the ox and and being fair when you're, whiplashing people.
Mm.
Kind of a mixed bag there.
Yeah, there were a couple of agricultural things in there that intrigued me. But one was, of course, the one that about leaving something for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. But earlier, in the previous part, we had about you can go into somebody's field or into somebody's yard and eat the fruit from their tree, but you can't fill your bag with it. You can only eat. And I think of the issues that we have here in Hawaii quite often of crop theft, where people find they have fruit trees and somebody's coming in their yard and making off with it. But this is saying it's okay if they just eat what they can while they're standing there.
Yeah.
The concept is if you're hungry, eat, but it's not yours to make a profit off of.
Right.
Benefit from it.
Right. And actually, that's one of the easiest ones for me. That one I understand without question. I also, living here on the field and growing fruits and vegetables, it happens often to us. And I don't really care if people pick lilikoi to eat because they're hungry or even if it just looks good. But when kids start throwing them into our gutters and like playing games of, whatever, using them like balls in the field, I'm like,
Yeah.
it really irritates me.
It's
Or,
vandalism.
when we had berries and kids would like take their baseball caps and start filling them and to take home, I mean, if they need them, sure. But the idea is eat them and enjoy, right? So
Do you think they do? Do you think they do that because you're Howleys?
They do it because they're kids. I don't know.
Okay, all right, just asking.
Yeah, I don't look too far beyond that. They're doing it because they're kids. But you know, it's an opportunity for it's a learning moment, right? It is here so you can enjoy it, but it's not here so you can destroy it. And these ones that Alan just mentioned, they're very, these themes are recurring. I mean, the Book of Ruth is, kind of built around that concept too, and the understanding of who the responsibility of humans in a given society toward those who, for reasons that they have no control over, find themselves needy. When somebody
I
finds
liked it in the last, I think it was, I don't think I read it, but anyway, the part where it talks about the slave who's run away from his master and you shall take him in. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, if I was a slave and I was being really mistreated and I had the opportunity to run away, how wonderful would it be to have a new master who's going to treat me decently, even though I'm still a slave. I'm like treated like a human being. And from that perspective, I thought it was quite a righteous kind of thing to have in. Not that I believe in slavery, but but that kind of indentured slavery where you're treated well compared to how you were beaten before or whatever, I thought
Yeah.
was pretty good.
Thank you, Sarah, for saying for being a human being
Yeah,
in big letters. It's the
yeah,
human being part we tend to forget.
right. And so all human beings should have a right to pick a mango and eat it or a banana and eat it. But you don't have to take 3 bunches of it and sell it in the market or bring it home for your, whatever. So,
Marilyn, you have your hand up. I don't know if it's by
Yeah,
mistake.
I do. I was just going to say that section that Sarah just referred to it also starts out with speaking to the brethren and also to the sojourner. It makes a specific um, identification of the two categories, not, to treat them with fairness. And it wasn't just for your brother, it was also for the sojourner. And it went out of its way to say that clearly. So I thought that was noteworthy because we had discussed how a lot of these things were for for your brother, and it didn't mention the stranger in the land or the sojourner, but this one particular verse did. It was a few pages back.
Mhm.
Anyway.
Yeah, and Matan is adding in the chat about the responsibility in the Jubilee year to free the slaves.
right.
Yeah.
And also to leave a corner of the field
Mhm.
in the Jubilee year, to leave a corner of the field for the poor and the sojourner and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So they usually come as a group, the widow, the orphan, the sojourner, right? Because it's the idea that in society, there's some people who don't have the abilities or the agency that others, the ability to have agency that other people have.
So
I don't know how it is in Hawaii now, but in the early days, Marilyn, you probably remember this. We used to go up to people's houses and ask if we could take some fruit from the tree.
Yep.
Or, I mean, people just didn't, they shared what they had.
Yeah, we belonged to a group back then, Marriage Encounter, and the people that were in that group were not of, our religious persuasion necessarily or anything, but they used to say, "Are you guys shopping at the supermarket? Because if you are, stop it. Come, we've got tons of food that's just, needs to be eaten. Please come pick on our land."
Yeah. And there was a guy up Hulualo, I think it was Hulualoa, Uncle John. And he was a Seventh-day Adventist, a big plot of land. And anybody who wanted to come up there and plant or work in the garden could then come and pick from the garden. So there was a lot of that going on back in the day.
Yeah, it was totally like that. It was not like it is now. I'm not faulting people, especially, locals that don't want others going on their land and picking the food that they've been growing. I mean, they could do what they want with their food, but I'm just saying that there's been a qualitative change in the society here over the past 40 years that is palpable.
Yeah.
50 years, actually. It's 50
I think
years.
it's still more like that over on the Hilo side.
I think
people-
it comes and goes. During COVID, there were actual organized efforts to say, boy, some of you have too much fruit, and boy, some of you have no access to fresh fruit. What can we do? Oh, let's provide people who can help harvest and distribute. And this one organization called the Food Basket, some offshoot of the Food Basket, Kokua Harvest. They still do that, and they then take it one step farther. They bring cut up, ready to eat fruit to local schools here.
Nice.
Because
so there's some organized things, but this was more like a regular community, like just people, just not organized things. Yeah.
Go ahead, Alan.
I don't want to take this into an area we don't necessarily want to get into, but the olives had been mentioned a few times, and the image that I'm seeing and disturbed by is things that are happening in some of the West Bank communities where there are Palestinian or Arab families who have been growing olives for years, and their groves are being burned or the trees uprooted by people who claim that they have a biblical right to be in that land. And so they're using the Torah as their justification for doing something that the Torah forbids.
Yeah. Yeah. You can
it's just hard to rationalize that.
Are they even Jews?
The settlers, yes.
Yeah.
They're zealots.
Yeah, they're very zealots, right? They're zealots.
So I just I don't want to
there's so
necessarily...
many of them there. First of all, they have no business being there because that wasn't the original deal. But now there's so many of them there that to move them out is a big problem.
So yes, so think what it means to a society that relies on the growing the trees, tending the land, grazing the sheep, like self-contained, who literally have an economy, a family structure, all of the things. They have it. And there are people who can find reasons in the Torah to say, nope, none of that. What are they actually doing? They're saying, less human than me. They're breaking some of the most undeniably Jewish concepts, right? Because if we read in the Ten Commandments, you shall not make a graven image before me. The worst of the graven images is when humans create an image of God in their own image, the reversal of what God says. They say, we interpret and we rephrase to our own selfish, insecure, whatever reasons. Because olive trees, by the nature of them being needing to be planted and tended for generations before they yield anything, means that everything happens during that time. If you base a society on growing olive trees, you're planning for a future. And but what are you doing by taking those olive trees out? What are you depriving people of? Hope and a future. What an anti-Jewish concept. I can't even get over. Thank you for bringing it up, Ellen. I can't even think in any way, how is that Jewish? It's nothing, it's anti-Jewish, in my understanding.
And that's why it's painful to see these things happening and not being no either compensation to the victims or no retribution or punishment for the perpetrators. And it, like you say, it's just not a Jewish, the human, it comes back to the word that you were so into the conversation before, of being human, of treating each other as human beings. And it's just painful to see that in our name.
Yeah, and those who are not doing it, but who witness it, need to speak up, because it's the silence that allows it to continue. You know, like saying, if we lived in the land, one would hope we would speak up about seeing that happen in front of our face, where people were being, their lands were being looted, or they weren't providing places for people to work, eat, live when it was available to them to do so. You would hope that the neighbors would disapprove.
Well, I think that there's tens of thousands of Israelis out every
Weekend.
every weekend, and it's not only about Gaza, it's about the whole
Yeah.
thing. So I think there are, there's a lot of Israelis that are out protesting against that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Ruth Ellen, I didn't mean to upstage you. I just had to say that.
No, but Ellen brought this up, and I'm telling you, immediately when this is over, go and read Rabbi Sax's Two Kinds of Hate. I mean, he's just so eloquent. I mean, he just summarizes everything we're talking about, and how hate will beget hate. You have to get looking in the rearview mirror. You don't forget what happened, but you use it as a learning process. So what you don't want to happen in the future, and then you move on from there. And that's what these ultra zealots are not doing. I mean, there are times when people have a right to avenge what has been done, and there's room for restitution. But the main thing he said is, you cannot go back in time. If someone's dead, they're dead. You cannot take back from people from time who were improperly, immorally imprisoned or whatever. And this is what we have to deal with now. We can't go back and make perfect amends for what happened in America in slavery, or any of these atrocities all over the world. We kind of have to move on from there, or we're just going to keep repeating these cycles. But anyway.
But the thing is that this is all because of fear, right? People are afraid of losing their land or losing
their status. Often it's just their status. They want to have a hand up, or a step up from those who are what they would call beneath them economically, or whatever, pecking order.
But don't you think that this hate comes from fear, and the violence comes from fear?
Yeah, originally, but I mean, why are people prejudiced? Some of it is fear, and some of it is it's reprobate. I don't know what to say about that.
It's fear of losing something, and therefore you have to make the other less than.
Right. But I mean, if you don't have any gratitude for what you have, it makes it easier to not have, you have to have, one needs to have some humility. And I think that's the lack that we see in mankind, whichever group, in our country anyway. Maybe.
By the way, it's against the law to plant olive trees in Arizona.
The bulwark here. We have some developments in the Epstein.
Okay, so Matan, speak, and Sarah was saying that it is against the law to plant olive trees in Arizona. Is there
Why?
Because of people's allergies to them. We do have one place that does have olive trees. It's contained, and they run a whole business. But you can't, I can't go to California. First of all, I can't buy an olive tree in Arizona. If I drove to California and bought one and came back and planted it, I mean, great if I'm not caught, but if I'm caught, it's against the law.
All right.
And that makes me question, all these Republican states that want less government, they want freedom and less government and stuff. And yet we have, things like that, which I'm not against. I mean, if people did used to move here because of their allergies,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's a lot of things that people are allergic to here now. So I don't think you really move to Arizona because of your allergies, unless certain kinds of allergies, yes. But anyway, I just threw that in. It's not even a big discussion.
I'm going to call on Matan, and then I'm going to call on Alan to carry us out with the last few lines. Sorry about that, because there's some bad ones. Go ahead, Matan, whatever you're going to say, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, I put something in the chat about the movie Lemon Tree, which was put out by the Israeli Film Council, and it details a lot of these issues. Now, it's not 100% true, but there are elements of truth in it. It's about a Palestinian woman who lives near the Green
Oh,
Line. And next door to her is a very high-ranking person in the Ministry of Defense.
Gosh.
And he's very concerned about her lemon orchard and security and so forth and so on. So he wants all the trees taken down.
Mm.
so here's a good thing, freedom from government versus the freedom to do something. So does she have the right to grow her lemon
On her own land?
on her own land? Should she be free from the defense minister telling her no? I
One would
mean,
think.
these are questions today that I think do transfer to today's world. How much freedom from government do we need? And how does that coincide with the freedom to be able to do something?
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's in a situation where somebody is lowly, I mean, like their status, they don't have any, and they're being encroached upon by somebody that has a lot. That happens everywhere. I mean, it's disgraceful, but it's the reality.
By the
It's-
way, Matan, does she get to keep her lemon grove, or what do you remember?
The court decides that they have to chop down half the lemon trees.
Good grief.
Half, and so she keeps half and gets half.
She gets to harvest the other half, yes.
And based on what? Do you remember?
That,
I mean-
she said she wanted all of it. And
No, but
the
I mean,
defense
why did
minister-
they decide half? Do you remember what was the logic there? No?
I don't think it went into that. I think that was just the ruling of the Israeli court.
That would be interesting to know that ruling. Craig, what do you think?
I'm no expert on olive tree law.
It's lemons here.
Lemon trees, I do know a little more about lemon. It just seems to me that the same book that we're reading every week is being read by the right-wingers in Israel who are causing problems. And we spend a considerable amount of time kind of softening the violence. And, well, the death penalty wasn't this frequent. And I just wonder if they get inspiration for violence from the Torah.
Okay, so Craig, we're going to continue this conversation for the rest of the time we know each other, because I'm not reading what you just said is not at all what I intended to say about the death penalty. It does not imply in any way that there's less. It implies that there really shouldn't be very much. The reading that I'm reading, specifically, because I know you're very invested in the subject of the death penalty, I think that we are in some of the same ways. The acknowledgement of the condition of being human is that we have weaknesses, and sometimes we want things, and we think that those things we want are very important, but we're always given the "but beware." And the same way with a death penalty, it's that same thing. Okay, yeah, there's a possibility that might happen, but have you looked at all the different aspects, and do you understand the cumulative damage to humanity by killing even one person? This brings to mind, I'm sorry I'm veering, but does everyone remember that story? I think it's either a Chinese or an Indian story about someone who out clevers the ruler by extracting, they get one wish based on something they did, and they did well, so they get a wish from the king, and their wish is to have 1 grain of rice and then double the grain of rice every day for a period of time, for a month. And it's a mathematical formula that is very hard to believe until you actually do it, that by the end of the month, it's so many grains of rice that it could bankrupt an entire kingdom. So that the idea of one human act that may be repeated by another, that may be repeated by another, and you see where that gets us. we get into situations that we can no longer get out of. So I think that there's some assumptions to be put aside. I'm really trying to read hard into the Torah, that none of what is written is told to us as something we should do. But most of our Torah, unfortunately, and I think it's part of where the Jews get this, bad reputation. Most of our Torah is prohibitions, because being human just sucks. And it does not come with any freedom to just sit and enjoy the fruit of the land. I don't see it anywhere. I don't see that anybody can justify cutting olive trees off the face of the earth. If you really believe in one of the first most important things is B'Tselem Elohim, that God created every creature, human, in the image of God. If you're willing to put that one aside, and that one comes pretty early on, then everything else is possible. But if you say, I understand the difficulty here, but I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to have to embrace the difficulty.
Hey, let me defend myself a second here. I'm not fixated on the death penalty, not really at all. I'm more concerned with extrajudicial violence outside of a court setting. I'm concerned about it in the Torah. I'm concerned about it in America. I'm concerned about it in the Caribbean. I'm concerned about it in Israel and Gaza. There's a whole lot of killing going on by people who purport to be a lot more religious than I am, a lot more Jewish than I am. So I assume they're reading the same Torah. So I'm just concerned about all the violence in the Torah, and that people who follow the Torah so explicitly, and we haven't talked about the Amalekites, where I think we can do anything to the Amalekites, right? And who are the Amalekites?
And who are the Amalekites, right?
Okay, so
I'm just commenting on the violence that, and a lot of this is new to me. And again, it's a violent parsha, a lot of, pillaging, rape, and rules regarding it.
But the violence in the parasha is not a guideline to do violence. It is a clear mention of the things that clearly happen, because laws aren't just floating out there to be imagined, like, they're not art. If you see a law written, it means something bad happened. It already happened. That's why the law is written. And again, where do so many laws, why are there so many laws? It's because morality is hard to hold on to. So in historical times where morality experienced hiccups and failures, boom, laws came in. And where you and I can have this conversation, but I'd be afraid of insulting you because you're a lawyer, is I think that lawyers have come in to kind of like take advantage of this human frailty and say the law actually can be used to skip over horrible things that have been done. Like, we can actually use the law, reading it correctly, very correctly, and ignore the reason for its existence simultaneously. And that, I think, is the core of why, there's so many lawyer jokes. It is possible to uphold the law while disregarding morality.
Well, the Torah is the law, and it seemed to me what I read, it told parents to put out a troublesome kid and do this, do that, right? And there were things, if we win a war and I see a comely woman, take her to my house, shave her head. And if I'm still attracted, go ahead and have relations with her. I mean, that seems to be what is said right here.
Well, it is what it said, but it didn't say it as a guideline to life. It said it as these things have happened and there are laws.
But I'm saying some people may take it as a guideline because violence is being perpetrated.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. Some people do take it as a guideline. And what are they doing? They're actually doing what I have begun to understand is the opposite of what the instructions are. The complete opposite. They're like, well, it says it clearly right here. I saw it with my own eyes. You can see it too. I can point to it. That's facile. And it's available. Sure, it's available. It says those words are said there, but it doesn't say go out and do this. In fact,
Well, what do you think Smotrich and Ben-Gvir would be saying right now if they were part of our Torah study? Would they
Who?
be interpreting it? The two right-wing ministers, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich.
Okay, I just didn't missed it.
What
They
would
would be
they?
saying
What would
exactly
they
what
contribute
you're,
to our Torah study? What would they say? Would
They
they
would-
even? Would they even want you to be involved as a woman?
of course not. But that's why I think that they are doing the opposite of what I have learned to understand the instruction of studying the Torah is. And I think they know that. And the reason I think they know that is the more somebody becomes obnoxious about their beliefs, the more they are, what's the term? Projecting?
Mhm.
But don't you think that even though you may know what's right and wrong, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to choose what's best for yourself.
Well, that's a very narrow position on what's
Yeah,
best.
but that it
for
may be narrow, but it's predominant in our world today.
I understand.
Yeah, so like I was looking at this lemon tree thing over here. Evidently, the defense minister built a big house right on the border of the
Mhm.
West Bank where this woman had her lemon grove. And I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, even his wife at some point was feeling sorry for this woman. But they said it was like they said they have to cut down they have to cut down the lemon grove because it's a security threat. Yet in the end, they only cut down half of the lemon grove. Well, how does that make it less of a security threat?
Well, it's possible, Sarah. We don't know what what the land
I
looks
don't
like.
know, but it's very questionable to me how half of a lemon grove that just extends the border to the rest of the lemon grove. So I think it was just,
Perhaps.
he
I mean,
built this big, beautiful house right there, and even his wife could see,
mhm.
the hypocrisy in it. And then they had a party, and evidently they had no lemons. And so somebody thought it would be okay to go pick lemons from her
Oh my
lemon grove to bring to the party. I mean, I don't know.
No, that for sure doesn't
So
square up.
Craig, I would encourage you to find some Israeli lawyer friends and see how they are, this is very, very tough. These are the toughest times Israel is going through all around. I mean, the physical threat is unabated. And on top of that, you're adding a threat to the souls of all the young people who are coming up to do things that they have been taught otherwise.
Mhm.
That is the real danger to the state of Israel. The absolute real danger, because the danger of the Iranian missiles, there can be mitigated. The danger to what's happening to the souls of young people, and this goes back to that one piece of art that Alan had up there of the soldier with the mom at the corner with the shaved head, the soldier holding on to two things, the gun and the Tanakh. The Israeli army was always considered to have the highest of the ethical codes, some of them now blatantly being ignored, purposefully and blatantly. What is that doing to the future of Israel? What's that doing to the young, most impressionable young people? It's a tragedy.
Mhm.
I would say it's the toughest time for the Jewish diaspora. Not as hard as for Israel, but we are in a troublesome time. That's why I appreciate this group so much, that we can talk it out, hash it out, and it's another good session. A lot of this is new to me, and just concepts of taking women as a prize of war. We know religions came afterwards, like Islam, and we could put down their leader Muhammad for chopping off the heads of the Jews at the Battle of Qurayza and then raping the wives and taking the children. But, here we read about our tradition, which isn't in the book totally dissimilar, and I'm sure it was copied, as was everything in Islam, as reaction to Judaism. And so now I understand it a little better, having for the first time read this Torah portion.
So in other years, I'd like to dwell on the beginnings of Torah portions. This year I felt like, well, we've done it already, but you weren't here. Just look at the first 3 words of this parasha. Ki Teitzei lamilchama. It does not say go out to war. It acknowledges that war is inevitable and sets down rules, okay? It doesn't say go out to war. It says in the event that, because it's going to happen. What can we do? It's going to happen. So then that whole, like those first few sentences, let's put this filter on it and see if it just feels a little bit more comfortable to you. All the things that it says about what you're going to end up with women who are a product of, there's a history. There are things that have happened around the world at that particular time. The Israelites are not immune from being like others. They're always warned against it, but they're not immune from it. What happens in the process of saying, don't touch the woman whose husband you killed in war for a month? You know what can happen during that month? Whoa, you can see her as a human being, right? Doesn't have to spell it out for you, but it says some process will happen. And again, do I want to read this into it? Yeah, boy, I do. Because otherwise, how do I read it? But even not taking the me out of it and just looking at the ambiguity, because it doesn't actually say when you go to war. It says if you kick it to the war, not le milchama, to any war, the war. What if the war is that war with you? You're always war with yourself. There's so much ambiguity in the Hebrew, which is why when Yehuda says he's frustrated with one translation, I understand him. The ambiguity is intentional because you are meant to bring yourself into the reading. None of this, Moses is not saying go out to war. God is not saying it at all because these are the words of Moses in Deuteronomy.
Well, a law is generally no good if it's too ambiguous. Ambiguity means it's vague and it's void for vagueness under what used to be our Constitution. So I get it. And yet at the same time, it seems like there are some rules like this bird nest thing. And I don't know if it came through in the chat, but I was at Pahoe Park yesterday and saw a fully formed bird's nest. I didn't see any in it. And I thought, gosh, how did this get here? It was just strange. And then to read about it this morning.
Well, I know.
Oh, go ahead, Alan.
As I say, I know you want to get to the end, so
if you just want to read the last 2 lines, that's okay too, or the last.
Before we get to the last 2 lines, I'm having surgery on my left eye on Wednesday.
Oh,
I'm having the cornea transplant. So,
wow.
If you guys could remember me.
For sure, for sure.
Thank you.
Oh. Well, let me pick up the reading, and this is in the spirit of what we're going to be reading later in Devarim about how you can't add anything to the Torah and you can't take anything away from it. All the words have to be in there. And all I can say is I really feel for any bar or bat mitzvah who has this as their parsha. Should men brawl together, a man and his brother, and the wife of one of them come forward to rescue her man from the hand of the one striking him, and she reach out her hand and seize his genitals, you shall cut off her hand.
Oh my God.
Your eye shall not spare her. You shall not have in your pouch different weight stones, a big one and a small one. You shall not have in your house different ephah measures, a big one and a small one. The whole and honest weight stone you shall have, a whole and honest ephah measure you shall have, so that you may enjoy the length of days on the soil that the Lord your God is about to give you. For the abhorrence of the Lord your God is anyone who does all these things, who commits any fraud. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you came out of Egypt, how he fell upon you on the way and cut down all the stragglers, with you famished and exhausted, and he did not fear God. And it shall be, when the Lord your God grants you respite from all your enemies around in the land that the Lord your God is about to give you in a state to take hold of it, you shall wipe out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens. You shall not forget.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so actually, I look up when those troubling lines, I do like to get a little clarity on them. So where is it? Oh, okay, the Hertz doesn't even really address that line 11. Oh yeah, wait. Cut off. The rabbis commuted this severe penalty into a money fine, varying in accordance with the status of the culprit and the victims. There's no other case of mutilation in the Torah. Okay. And in the women's commentary, that line 11, also very slim. This law, which appears harsh and puzzling by modern standards, involves sexually shaming a man in public. While other ancient Near Eastern laws contain similar stipulations, the biblical law is relatively mild. Yes,
Your
go
hand
ahead.
getting cut off
Cutting
is
off a hand is
mild?
relatively mild. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Are you saying something, or are you just showing us your hand that it's not cut off?
I'm saying, doesn't this show God may have a sense of humor? I mean, to talk about a pouch full of stones right after this testicular talk, I mean, that can't just be coincidental. That's Jewish comedic timing right there.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's hysterical.
Okay, so Matan put something else in the chat, but I can't see it. Why not? Okay. Yeah, shame. And it's true. In Hebrew, it is mevoshim. Yeah. Thank you. And we cannot finish without addressing this often misunderstood, Craig, line about Amalek. Okay, so the people that you refer to by name who sit on the Israeli cabinet right now, look at this term and give it justification for flattening Gaza. Pure and simple, right? And doing other horrible things. But in this context of what we're reading today, feel free to take that. But what does it actually say? It says, remember what Amalek did to you on your journey when you left Egypt, when you were weak, and how they went after your, where is it? How he fell upon you on the way and cut down all the stragglers, with you famished and exhausted, and he did not fear God. And what are we told to do with the weakest in our community? Look out for them.
Right.
Right? Not, what's the term for fruit? What's the term for easy fruit? The low-hanging fruit. What Amalek did?
Didn't I just wipe out? Is that the word?
Wait, I didn't. You're cutting out.
Wipe out Amalek. I just read that we're supposed to wipe them out. Wipe out.
Okay, but who? Okay.
Amalek.
Right, but who? So I have a different translation here.
In this case, Amalek is the Palestinians.
Well, no, let's leave that
Well,
out for a
I'm
minute.
talking about a certain group of
Right.
of Jews.
That's an obviousness, but who does the smiting?
God.
The actual smiting.
God.
God.
And God is reminding, don't forget what Amalek did to you on your way out of Egypt when you were at your weakest. He went after the low-hanging fruit. Because
He could.
because he did not fear God. In Torah speak, when we talk about wiping out a people, it is not because you need their grapes and their houses. It's because you may follow in their ways to not fear God. And when I say fear, I don't mean like fear to mind God or to be aware of God.
Respect.
The word in Hebrew. Right. The word in Hebrew, yareh, is more like be mindful of. Right. So that is what's going on. That's the you have to read the whole thing. You can't just pick and choose what you want, either direction. And then it ends with saying, therefore, when Adonai your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you in the land that your God is giving you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven.
Wow.
Do not forget.
Ah,
So do not do to the weak among your perceived enemies what Amalek did to you. That's a different way of reading it. But you can also look to it and say justification, kill every single Palestinian, regardless of whether they're Hamas or not. You can read it some people read it that way. They feel justified in doing it.
Wipe out, blot out, remove them from the history so they can't even be remembered. Yeah, that's pretty
harsh.
Pretty good, pretty harsh, pretty strong.
But, I love the image that you had earlier, Aviva, of how Moses seems to be in a hurry to get all this out, because these last 5 are such a crazy quilt. We go from cutting off a hand because it touched, it invaded the man's privacy, to something that is so sensible, to having honest weights in business. Just like we had, before about the judges who should be fair and not take bribes, and that all just makes such good common sense, and that's what you want to say. This is what we stand up for, is honesty, and then we go on to this and wipe them out, because you remember it's just this crazy quilt of having all of these things together and not really any. I don't know what the through line is, what the thread is.
You're muted. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's not to counter Aviva, but it's not Moses. It's the editorial deadline where the galleys are due. And we're done with all the editing. We're just going to publish.
It does have that feel. I mean, literarily, it has that feel.
yeah.
It doesn't mean we should not take it into account, because one of the things that we do when we study Torah is we pay attention to the order that things are presented, and therefore linking two completely random things that are written can lead to humor for Craig.
So Craig, I will read to you from the Hertz, which is a very conservative commentary, that line 19, the very last line: blot out a people so devoid of natural religion as to kill non-combatants had forfeited all claims to mercy.
See, I look at all this the opposite of, this is actually the Israelis are acting as Amalek here. Look at what's going on in Gaza, and this is Israel doing all this. Israel attacking the weak. They might, the excuse is to try and get rid of Hamas, but from the beginning of the war, when Netanyahu declared that, all of us knew that was a fake. It was an excuse to not have to serve time in prison when all this ended.
Right.
Because there's never a time that Hamas will vanish.
There isn't any, and yeah, that's exactly right, Yehuda. Yeah, Hamas isn't going anywhere. There's always going to be a Hamas.
Hamas is an idea.
Right, exactly.
Ideas don't vanish like that.
They don't. They never have.
The guy who obviously believes in bad bloodlines and certain people who need to be treated harshly is the guy that Netanyahu met with in Mar-a-Lago before he got elected, and the guy whose parents sent him to military school. So, and the guy who said we're going to build the Gaza Riviera. So they're working together. Together,
Yes,
this is happening.
yes.
Cannot happen without the United States, as everybody's perceiving. And I think the big boss is the United States, although I think Netanyahu probably has the Epstein file, as does Putin.
Yeah. And that's not even talking about possibly what the Russian guy has on the president.
That's
The-
what he just said.
And at this point, I'm going to take us off
Yeah, I
the
think
live
that's a
stream,
good idea
and,
when we get too
and we can go
started
to
here.
town.
But you know, I mean, this is
Good-
why
good
we
study.
study Torah, isn't it? So that we can apply it to today. I don't know what we're so afraid of about being online. I guess we don't want to be persecuted. But
No. And stuff like this is out there. I'm already out there to a degree, and we're all living in a new world. But I am greatly benefited by learning the Torah, and it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. It's just influential. It's influenced our people and society as a whole